Hello, welcome in or welcome back to my channel. My name is Deb from DG Reads, and I'm here to kick off my final Amazing Readathon vlog. I am currently speaking to you from Saturday morning, the 21st. So we still have a good chunk of the month left, but in terms of how my vlogs lay out, this will kind of be the final quote-unquote week. The Amazing Readathon is, of course, the fantastic and so much fun month-long readathon from Brie at 4 Paws in a Book. I'm on Team Gale Weavers, and I've been having a blast all month long. To catch you up on where we last left off, at the end of my vlog that went up previously, we had just had the prompt drop for Camp Half-Blood, and I did indeed make it there at the end of that vlog. So to start things off, we are still at Camp Half-Blood, and I've been doing a little bit of sightseeing. At this point, I'm going to keep reading until we get a new prompt. So just to catch you up, the 250 point prompt for this leg of the journey is a book with a name in the title, and for that I started with The Mystery of Mrs. Christie by Marie Benedict. Way back when Agatha Christie was around, she disappeared for a while, and it was an ongoing mystery. And this is Marie Benedict's attempt to kind of write a narrative around it. And I really like Agatha Christie, so this one has had me intrigued. It's been on my list for a while to pick up, and I did get a gifted copy of this from Scout Books quite a while back. So it's one I've needed the push to get to, so I'm glad to have done it. I really enjoyed this overall. I'm not much of a historical fiction reader these days, but I think because I really enjoy Agatha Christie, seeing nods to her work and her life in here really did keep my attention. I really like how they talked about her starting to write mysteries because she was told that no one thought she could write a successful mystery, and given that she is the queen of mysteries, that says a lot. So this was a good time. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't a super new favorite. It was a little slow in a few places, but overall, good time. And then from there, I needed an audio for yesterday, so I picked up The Unlikely Adventures of the Shergill Sisters. This one is by Bali Kaur Jaswal, possibly mispronouncing that, but this is the same author who wrote erotic stories for Punjabi widows, which I did enjoy, so this was one that intrigued me. In this one, we're following 3 sisters, and their mother has recently passed away, and she's left them a letter and instructions to make the journey to India that she couldn't really make at the end of her life, and to do things that she wants them to do. And they agree to do this, but rather reluctantly. Their relationship with each other is not great. Things going on in their lives at the moment aren't all great, and there's a lot to work through in here. I found this a little bit slow, and I felt like it could have been a little shorter. I did really appreciate the kind of insights into India that we get in here, the different cultures, and I think all of that was really richly done. The sisters were rather interchangeable for me at the very beginning. It took me a while to figure out who was who and which storyline went with which. I think partially because I was doing this entirely on audio, but I did appreciate the journey. I did appreciate some of the discussions we have in here about women, about their role in society, about their role in a traditional marriage, and to see the sisters start to bond and stand up for each other and all of that was really well done. And in the end, this one's getting like a 3.5 to a 4 for me, and I'm glad that I finally picked it up. And then I decided one book on my shelf that would be really fun to pick up was Pinocchio, because again, we get a name in the title, but also I have this really lovely Miralima edition. These editions, if you haven't seen one, will include some really cool illustrations, and then you also get these like interactive pages. Like this one's a little puppet, and you can move his little legs and arms around and wave. And then you get different things, like there's a little finger puppet stage. So these editions are a lot of fun. So I did read this. It's always interesting kind of seeing the original story more so, which I haven't read in years and years and years, compared to like what Disney did with a story. So this was generally a good time. And then I should say each of those books will get me 500 points for my team. And then the last one I picked up, which I'm not really going to heavily feature here because it is going to be in another vlog, but that was The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. This is about a woman who inherits a house from someone she knew years and years and years ago and heads off to Ibiza, to this island, to explore, and finds kind of magical things along the way. I did not connect with this book. It had such an interesting concept. It seemed like something that would be up my alley, but it just was too much. Everything was explored too much, and we weren't making a lot of forward progress in here. So I did actually wind up DNFing this one. There is a mentor in here, so I am logging this for the prompt for a book involving a mentor, and that's going to get my team 400 points because I did make it past the halfway point. I just had no motivation to continue on from there. That's my sightseeing reading so far. It's been relatively successful, but I am going to go ahead and I have a nail appointment today, and then after that I have some filming to do, various end of the month things, prepping for July things, but other than that, that, I am planning to read quite a bit, hopefully today. We'll see how it goes, and I'll provide you with an update later on. Happy Sunday. I'm having a cozy, lazy day at home. Should I have gotten more accomplished this weekend? Probably, but that's okay. We're dealing, we're having coffee, and we're going to talk because there are some updates. I decided to spend some time reading something that I needed to pick up, and that is Arcana Academy by Elise Kova. This is an arc for a upcoming July 22nd release. Elise Kova is a fantasy romance writer that I really have enjoyed in the past, so I was really excited for this one because it's dark academia. It has an interesting sounding magic system, and I thought that it might work for the mentor prompt that we had for sightseeing. And as I got further into it, no, it doesn't really feel very mentor-y because our main character in here kind of already knows what she's doing. But I decided I could save this and use it with my power-up card that lets me read any book regardless of whether it fits the prompt or not, to submit it when we get to the leg where we're supposed to read a shorter book than our previous book, because it's a nice chunky one, so it'll give me good points on a prompt that otherwise generally a shorter book is not going to be a good point book. So this one, I'm currently about 40% of the way into it, so I figured I might as well give you some initial thoughts on it. I am going to be putting it down for reasons, which we'll talk about in a minute, but this is set in a world where magic is based on tarot, and having the ability to ink tarot cards means you can wield the magic of those cards. There is a glossary at the back that kind of explains things quite well. Each kind of card, like the Two of Wands card, will provide magic that helps if the person holding the card is lost. And these cards are consumed by using the magic, and they're used to different levels of power. The face cards, I'm assuming there's a better term for that. I'm not a tarot type person, but there are certain cards that have more magic, and those who haven't been properly trained aren't allowed to use those. Our main character in here, however, has never been trained. She has an innate ability with these cards, and it catches people's attention. She's in trouble for using them. She's in jail at the start of this book, and then she's approached by one of the princes of the realm to find out how she got the inks to do what she was doing, and eventually she gets recruited to go to the academy where they teach the art of this. But of course, she already knows what she's doing, hence why I didn't feel like mentoring really came into it, even though it's a school teaching setting. She's really trying to find her sister, who last she heard was at the school and was the one who was smuggling out inks and things like that, but has now gone missing. So I'm having a fantastic time with this. I'm finding the magic system to be really intriguing and a little bit different than most things I've seen. I like the fact that there's a lot of variety in the magic because there's so many different tarot cards, but at the same time, it is limited. There's a certain number of cards. Although maybe there's some more out there, who knows? So I'm having a fantastic time with this one. It's one that I mainly have been reading in print. I do have access to the audiobook through PRH Audio, but it is in their app where you're limited to 2 times speed, and I can definitely read this with my eyes faster. So I'm just kind of using that when I need to get up, get food, whatever. But I've been binging this and getting through it so quickly. So far, this is going really well, but I am going to put it down. As I was getting in bed last night, we had a near midnight drop from Bree, and we have our leg 8 information. We are on our way to Sivernage, which is the world of Serpent and the Wings of Night and that whole universe from Carissa Broadbent. And this is a world of darkness, and it makes sense that we would get the drop in kind of the US's middle of the night. The prompt for this particular book is to read a book with low ratings that you think you will still enjoy. And my plan for this was to pick up The Last Time She Saw Him by Kate White. This is a gifted copy I received from Harper, and it has, I think, like a 3.4 something on Goodreads, and that was my plan for this book. But one of the sightseeing prompts is to read a title with 5 or more words in the title, and this definitely counts for that. So, since I was in the middle of a sightseeing prompt for the previous leg that I had not finished and submitted before that midnight drop, I decided to use one of my power-up cards that allows me to choose any book that doesn't match. We have 2 of those, so I'm going to use one for Arcana Academy, and then I decided I would use the other one here. I read The Rose Society by Marie Lu. This is the sequel to The Young Elites, and I had a good time with it. I think I'm not fully 100% invested in the series. I can't really say too much about what happens in this one because it is a sequel, but I'm glad that I continued it. My plan is to read book 3 in July for various reasons, so I'm glad that I picked it up, and I wound up finishing it. I wound up staying up after the kind of prompt drop woke me back up again, and finishing it around 1 a.m. in the morning, so I am now at my destination in Sivernage. So that means I can already start sightseeing. And I have lots of plans for this. At first, I wasn't connecting with the prompts necessarily, and then now my list is far too long for how many things I would like to read for the bonus prompts in this leg. So let's get back to this one. I'm glad I wound up swapping it out because I started this morning and I'm already 55% of the way through this and I'm just not invested. We are following a woman named Kiki and she is at a party. Her ex is there and it was kind of a messy situation. They were actually engaged, but she had feelings, unrequited feelings, but feelings for someone else and broke off the engagement. This is their first time seeing each other. Since then, it was a little bit of she was going to go because he was supposed to be out of town, but then his plans got canceled. He showed up. All of this happens. At the end of the night, they part on fairly friendly terms, although she overheard him saying things at the party that kind of implied he wasn't okay with her being there, with her being around. And then they hear a gunshot and a horn, and they discover him dead in his car. It's a headshot, and the police call it a suicide. And she is kind of a little bit guilty about how things ended with them. She's very interested to find out what really happened because she doesn't believe this is a suicide. Some of his friends don't think so either. The police really are useless. There's also kind of a paranormal element being introduced in the middle of this, and I'm not connecting with her as a character. She's very much centering things on herself and her feelings about the situation, and there's a disappearing girl subplot going on in here as well. Occasionally we're getting a different POV that's a male POV that I'm just not figuring out what exactly that's connecting, and I think that's just because my attention's not so much here on this one. So I am going to go ahead and DNF this one. It will still get my team 400 points. So I made it far enough in for that, but I'm really glad I wound up swapping books because I just don't feel the need to figure out the answers in this one because honestly, I don't care. So my priority for today then is to move on to a different sightseeing prompt, and the highest point prompt is to read a book with a time of day in the title. Think midnight, dusk, dawn, and night. And I have several books that actually are on my immediate TBR that have such words in them. And then like I mentioned, we also have the second highest prompt is to read a book with 5 or more words in the title. So between those two, I have a lot of things that I could get to get a lot of bonus points for my team. I think where I'm going to be starting the morning is with the Scorpion and the Night Blossom, which actually would work for both, but since the time of day is the more valuable one, I'm going to use the night in this one. And this is by Amelie Wen Zhao, and this is one that I received from Fairy Loot. As always, it is gorgeous. It's also the last book that was kind of on my radar for books with trials in it, I believe, to try to fit in this month somehow. So this should get me the trials bonus as well. I don't know really anything about this one other than I picked it up because of the trials. And it says, the Immortality Trials offers a second chance in a brutal world and are open to any mortal willing to risk the journey to the immortal realm. The prize for completing them is eternal life. However, first they must survive. So I am very intrigued. That is going to be my coffee I'm currently reading for the morning. And with that, I also have a few thrillers that I might pick up. I need to definitely put on an audiobook that I can do something purely audio-y today because I do have a few things I need to accomplish that require the use of my hands and not a lot of brain power. So hopefully I can get some good reading in today. I do have a watch along later this afternoon to take a break in the middle of the day. And beyond that, no other plans for the day. So Kylie is snoozing away behind you. She's been called upon to do a little bit of book modeling because I'm behind on getting my book reviews posted and up and so forth. So that is also on the plans. And then I will check back in with you later once I have some initial thoughts for you on my reading. It is Sunday evening. I haven't gotten as much reading done as I would have liked, but I spent a lot of time today working on editing and getting some videos ready. I have a vacation coming up fairly early on in July, so I'm kind of trying to prep for that, have stuff ready to go for that. So it was kind of a busy weekend between filming and editing and all of that, and I still have more to do, but I'm kind of mentally wiped at this point and ready to get in bed, read for a while, and psych myself up to make it through another work week starting tomorrow. I did, however, make it halfway into the Scorpion and the Night Blossom, and I'm having a good time with this one. I'm liking the Asian-inspired mythology, the kind of sassy main character. We've got a young woman who has become responsible for her family. Her father was killed by this monster, and basically this monster reads a lot like a vampire, except it's sucking souls, not blood. And her father was killed. Her mother was partially drained, so her soul was damaged. She's basically catatonic. She doesn't really do much. An Yang has a baby sister who she's pretty much raised herself, and she's trying to figure out a way to cure her mother. And it's coming time for the immortality trials. And what this is, it is a series of trials that are very dangerous, of course. And if you pass them, you can either become immortal yourself, or you can get this like pill or this drop of blood or whatever it may be that can heal a soul. And she has determined that this is how she's going to save her mother. She meets a guy along the way on this travel to this place where this trial is happening through this dangerous region, and they kind of form a little bit of an alliance after they have a really, really rocky start. The monsters of this world appear human, and she at first thinks he is one of them, and that gets complicated. Where I am now, which is about at the halfway point, a little bit shy of halfway maybe, I am in the midst of trials and I'm enjoying them. I am not finding them necessarily the most compelling, but they are a good time. It makes for a really easy read. This is very pretty large print in here, which is helping as well, as I am tired when it comes to following along. So I do think I should be able to finish this up early enough tomorrow to be able to go ahead and put it in. This will get my team 550 points. So I will be back once I have final thoughts and see where we go with this, but I'm enjoying the relationship, the true kind of enemies to, I'm assuming, lovers that's going to happen in here, and trying to figure out the motives of the different people who are against her, and is there something different about her, because of course there is in this type of story. So that's where we're at with that. I am also working on a book for a different vlog, but it will also get my team 500 points if I can finish that one also. So I have some ambitious sightseeing goals, but I'm hoping we've got a little bit more time. We only got the drop less than 24 hours ago, so I do have hope with that. We'll see. We still have 2 more legs to get to in this journey, but still having a really good time with it overall and looking forward to what's ahead. It's Tuesday morning, and I have a couple of updates for you because I finished a couple things. The Scorpion and the Night Blossom I finished up yesterday morning, mostly on my commute, and then after I got to work I finished the last little bit, so I was so close. This wound up being really enjoyable. I think it worked really well in terms of pulling in the Asian mythology, giving it some unique twists. I did predict a few of the twists that happened in here, but there were a couple that I did not see coming, which I really enjoyed. It pulled a lot of threads together from earlier in the book, later in the book, and that also worked well for me. I think it was an easy read. It didn't require too much brain power, but also it had an interesting world, interesting creatures. The vampire-y creatures that I said didn't drink blood, I was mistaken about that. They do drink blood too, so they are very vampire-like, but they also damage souls and take souls and things like that. So there is more going on there. I just wanted to correct it since I kind of misspoke earlier. But overall, this one wound up being 4 stars. It goes in for 550 points for my team because of the trials element and because it has night in the title. And then the other book I was working on for night in the title is The Night Marchers. I finished this up. It's going to be in an upcoming vlog, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but did want to mention that I finished this up for another 550 points and overall enjoyed it. It was on the slow side, but I liked it. It's not one I'm considering a new favorite. It's probably not going to stick in my head for long, but there you have it. More thoughts when I put out my vlog. And then from there, I needed just something super easy, and I decided to put on a reread of The Woman in Cabin 10 from Ruth Ware. This is a book I read back when it was first out, which I think was 2017. I could be really off base with that, but that's the number that's jumping into my head. So there's a lot about it that I didn't remember. It was my first Ruth Ware book. I remember enjoying it at the time, but now that there is a sequel coming out very shortly, The Woman in Suite 11, I was very curious to kind of reread this one first, just because I want to see what connections there are, why this is written as a sequel without new characters, and I figure I will get most of that if I have more familiarity and remind myself about book 1. I didn't remember much going into it. As I started reading, things started coming back to me. The borrowing of a mascara from another woman, I didn't realize was such a plot point, but the second I started reading, I'm like, there's something about mascara in here. The plot of this one, if you aren't familiar, is that we are following a woman who's a reporter. She's invited to go on this kind of luxury yacht cruise and report on it. Right before she goes, she has a traumatic experience with a break-in in her home, and she's a little bit on edge from this. And then when she's on the ship, she realizes she doesn't have mascara. She goes to knock on the neighbor's door, asks to borrow mascara. The girl is a little bit weird, but agrees, gives her the mascara, and fine. And then she hears a scream, she hears a splash, she sees some things, and she knows somebody's missing off the ship. And this sets her on this path of investigating and trying to get the crew of the ship involved to figure out who went overboard. And they can't seem to find anyone who matches the description of this woman that she had seen. The cabin next to her is meant to be empty. There's nobody actually assigned to that room, and it's a mystery from there. I had a good time with this one again. It was an easy read. It's a reread. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Do I think it's the best plot ever? No, not necessarily. But it is an intriguing enough read. It kept my attention. It was a good multitasking book, and I think some of the twists and turns it takes and the way Ruth Ware put in kind of some extra intrigue with like these articles about our main character from the outside with a bit of a time discrepancy of what happened to her. Does she survive this cruise type of a thing? I think we're well done. So I think this was a 4-star read for me the first time around. I'll probably just leave my rating there for it. But since it is a long title, it will get 400 points for my team for the title longer than 4 words or 5 words. I'm forgetting the prompt. Whatever it is, it matches it. So that's where I'm at right now. I don't know what I'm going to be reading next. I'm heading off to work shortly and I need an audiobook, so I'll figure it out once I get there and provide you guys with an update later on. It is Wednesday morning. It's been a bit of a weird morning. Just as I was getting ready to leave the house this morning, my power went out and it was out for about an hour. So it's 10:30 now. I'm still at home. I'm about ready to actually get out of the house, go to work. I was able to take a couple meetings from home this morning so that I was still being productive, even though I was kind of locked in my house. Yes, there's a way to get out of my garage that doesn't involve power, but it involves manipulating a heavy door single-handedly, and I didn't really want to do that. So it's just been kind of a weird day. We don't have any updates on prompt drops or anything, leg drops. So I'm kind of in a limbo stage right now where I'm kind of guessing we're going to get one soon, but who knows? So where we're at currently, I just figured I would give you an update because I've been kind of all over the place with my reading. I did finish up Close Your Eyes and Count to 10, which like I think I said will be one that's in a future video, but I was able to submit it for a book with 5 or more words in the title. It did not work well for me. It was like a 2.5, unfortunately, but it does get the team 400 points. Then I have been kind of working on my last 2 leg books, even though I don't know which one is up next. I had already mentioned I was reading Arcana Academy by Elise Kova. I'm about halfway into this and having a fantastic time. The magic system with the cards, the kind of banter with our characters, all of that's going well. There's enough intrigue with the world, with the sister being missing. This is keeping me very hooked. Unfortunately, this morning when I had a little bit of time to read, it was not super dark, but not quite light enough to be reading in print. So I didn't have a chance to continue on in this one today, but I am eager to get going on it again, maybe this evening when I get home from work. And then I was kind of in between books and not sure what I wanted to put on and not having a lot right now of the kind of priority things I need to read with good audiobooks. So I wound up picking up The Rose Bargain since I have the audio from my library. This is the really pretty Fairy Loot edition. It's not one that I necessarily expect to absolutely love, but I'm halfway into it and I'm having a decent time. It is a kind of fantasy with romance with some interesting world building. The world building I am liking the most, I think. In this world, when you come of age, you get to make a wish. And you can wish for pretty hair, or you can wish for better teeth. You can wish for kind of whatever you want. But the queen to whom you're making this wish will set a price. And that price could be cutting off your toes. It could be something minor. It could be something really major. And that comes into play in the story. The main character's father made a wish that cost him all of his childhood memories, and you do kind of see how that impacts his life as a whole over time. The main character's sister, we don't know what her wish was. She doesn't remember what her wish was, but something happened. She went missing for quite a while. She came back, but she's a different person. And our main character and her sister were close. She wants her sister back to be who she used to be, and that's kind of one of her main motivations in life. There's also the idea that there's a fairy world out there that's cut off from their world, and that is something that really intrigues our main character. It's kind of illegal to really dabble in the fae realm or to have fairy ideas, things like that, but that is motivating her also. When Ivy, this main character, goes for her kind of rite of passage, they're opening the season to be debutantes and all this. When she goes to have her opportunity to make her wish, which she's hoping will be something that can help her figure out what's going on with her sister, there's a surprise twist in that the queen announces that all the girls who are there that year to become coming of age, whatever, they get the opportunity to enter this competition to marry Prince Bram, her son. And she agrees to do this. She winds up being one of the ones chosen to kind of go into this competition, hence the competition elements that's going to get a bonus for my team. There's also another prince, Prince Emmett, and she winds up connecting with him as well. And there's some intrigue going on here. There's some plotting going on here. This is all tied to the government and everything else. So I'm finding the world building in this to be really interesting. I'm not necessarily feeling a pull towards any of the romance, but that's where we're at with this one. I just hit about the 50% mark, so this is going well as well. So those are going to be my two final leg books for this journey. I know this vlog is feeling a little chaotic. I'm bouncing around things, but that's okay. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in terms of my audiobooking for the day. I'll probably continue on in the Rose Bargain, in the car at least, because I do have that audio from the library, so I can do that. I have to run a couple errands on my way into work and then spend the rest of the day, unfortunately, actually working. So we'll see how that goes. The day, I'm guessing, will bring an update, and I will probably check in with you this evening. It's now Thursday morning. I meant to get back to you last night, but I had grand plans of coming home, relaxing, reading, etc. Instead, I did relaxing. I'm going to lay down with Kylie in bed for a little bit and then kind of passed out. I pretty much just lived on YouTube last night and watched booktube and crochet videos and kind of dozed on and off until I finally got up and decided to go to sleep. Apparently, my body needed some sleep because I just could not peel myself back out of bed. But we do have some updates going on. So as expected, we did get our next leg drop. We are off to Chestnut Springs, the home of a romance series that's a little outside my wheelhouse, so not a place I'm super familiar with, but I know everyone's loving their cowboy-ish romances right now, and absolutely thrilled to have some horses gallop away with my romance reading because I was already at 86% into my romance prompt book at the time the prompt dropped yesterday, just because it's the one I have the best audiobook for. So I have reached Chestnut Springs with the Rose Bargain. And overall, I liked this. I wouldn't say I was completely obsessed with it. I did like the world building and the concept of this fae queen who had kind of crossed into our realm and was giving wishes, and the way this was set in the real world, but also not. The queen had the ability to grant wishes with twists and typical kind of fae stuff, and that had deeply impacted the kind of structure of the government in our real world and all of that. The characters in here I enjoyed. A little bit, I would say, of a love triangle going on in here, although it's very obvious which direction he's going, but there is some kind of feelings for the other person in the triangle. And the reveals we get about the sister were some things that I kind of expected a little bit, but there's a lot of kind of convenient manipulation of ideas and memories and those types of things going on in here that frustrated me a little bit. It did go a couple places I didn't expect. I'm not sure that I like how kind of the twist got played in here. I don't know. I'm trying to be vague, and also I don't have super solid thoughts on this yet, so it's making it very difficult to talk about. But overall, I had a good time with this. I think it's landing at a 3.5. Probably, I'm not even sure which way I'm rounding, up or down. I was so tired last night. By the time I got home, I don't even think I've logged it for sure, but 3.5 for sure with this one. It was decent. It was enjoyable enough, but not one I'm saying everyone should rush out and read necessarily unless it's something that calls to you. I did like the kind of dark twist to the almost selection-like competition between potential brides for the prince, and it did have some definitely interesting elements to it. So overall, not a bad time. And then, of course, we got new sightseeing prompts when the new leg dropped, and the highest point prompt in this case is to read an author with a pen name. And I did pick up one and finish one book yesterday, a little novella from Mira Grant, who is also Shauna McGuire, and this one was called Kingdom of Needle and Bone. And I thought I'd read most of Mira Grant, so I'm guessing my library maybe added this later on, or more recently, I should say. But it is a short novella. Like I said, it's like 130 pages, and it's about vaccines and herd immunity. And in this world, people have a lot stopped taking vaccines, and a particular illness comes along that when people get it, they become immunocompromised, and it's permanent. There's no cure for it. It can't be reversed. And there's a concern that basically everyone in the world will get this, and then they're all susceptible to any illness that comes along, and it could be the end of humanity. And the characters in here that we are following are creating kind of this separate space for those who are immune, for those who have not had this illness hit them yet, and therefore there's a protected population because they can't spread it. So it's very messagey, not as much actual storyline plot. It's very much an appreciated thing. Like, I liked the way she did this and the kind of message she's delivering in this, but at the same time, it wasn't quite as engaging as most of her books usually are. What I did find really interesting is this came out in 2019, so it was before COVID, and so much about kind of the anti-vaccine messages and the kind of way people talked about protecting those who couldn't have a vaccine, those who couldn't protect themselves when it came to their health because they're already immunocompromised and so forth, was so familiar from what we saw happening in COVID, all of the language about herd immunity that we heard talked about so often during COVID, and all this she had written before that even started. So that was really interesting, and I'm glad that I did pick this one up. It really only winds up being like a 3-star read for me because I didn't find it super engaging, but it was short, it was interesting, and I do like Mira Grant's writing in general. So with that, I am going to be sightseeing until we get another leg drop, and since it's only been 24 hours since that last happened, I don't think I am expecting that too soon. Obviously, we have to have the last leg drop in time for the end of the month to get a book read, but beyond that, I'm pretty much ready to go. In theory, I should get a decent amount of reading done before the next one since I did finish my romance read so quickly after the leg drop, but I do have a book event tonight. I'm going to Diesel Bookstore in Santa Monica. They have an event for Lisa Jewell's new book, and I just saw they've added that she'll be in conversation with Amy Tintera and Lucinda Berry, so I'm really excited to be going to that tonight. It's one of those things where I'm not exactly sure, leaving work at 5:30, if I can get there on time by 6:30, but we're gonna try to make it work. So this is the first time I've been to this bookstore. It's one I've been wanting to go to. I've only been to their kind of pop-up bookstore at the LA Times Book Festival before. And I think this is a newer location for them, so I'm excited for that as well. So that will detract a little bit tonight. I do need to find an audiobook because I'm going to be in the car quite a lot, probably hitting a lot of traffic. So we'll see what the day brings. Our priority prompts for this time around for the highest points are authors who use a pen name, one-word titles, and then the 150-point prompt is for a book with a cover change, and I certainly have a lot of those. So with that, I have a lot of options, but I'm waiting on a good audiobook to come through, so we'll see what winds up maybe coming in from my Libby today and take that and run with it. But I will provide you with an update later. I may throw some B-roll in from the book event, or who knows what I'm going to get up to, but I will be back once I have updates.
Swindler, Dirty John type situation. It's about this guy called Nick Radcliffe, and it's not a spoiler to say from the outset that he has numerous identities and living lots of different lives in conjunction with each other. He's dastardly and diabolical, and he's very dishonest, and he manipulates women into giving him their money.
Hello from Thursday evening. It's been a long day, so let's do a little bit of a recap. The workday was busy after traffic was just horrible this morning, but I had a lot of back-to-back meetings today, and then I had people requesting additional meetings, and it just was a lot. And then I had my book event this evening, and that was a lot of fun. The book was mainly for Lisa Jewell for Don't Let 'Em In, the new release. Got my signed copy and got to visit a bookstore that I haven't been to before. I honestly knew nothing about this book really, other than it was Lisa Jewell and there was an event. I thought maybe I could get there after work in a reasonable amount of time, and it did actually work quite conveniently. There was a bad multi-car accident on the interchange between two different freeways that I had to take, and that caused some problems, but even with that, I made it on time, and a little bit of circling to figure out where I was supposed to be going because the bookstore's kind of in a complex and I couldn't see the sign from the street. But even with that, I got there just barely on time. So I would definitely go to more events here. We had Lisa Jewell was in conversation with Lucinda Berry and Amy Tintera. I really enjoyed Amy Tintera, and I have yet to read Lucinda Berry, but I have a few of her books actually already downloaded on my Kindle to take with me on vacation in July. So very hyped to read her books, read this one, because the pitch from Lisa Jewell sounded really good. Unfortunately, it doesn't match any of the current prompts. As I was at work this morning, I got my Libby notification that a new book had come through, and that was The Blonde Identity by Allie Carter. I thought, let's just Google this author. Turns out it is a pen name. So I was excited to be able to download it. This is one I got gifted a copy from Avon Books, and it didn't necessarily scream this is a Deb book, but I did enjoy The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by this author when I read it at the end of last year. And there were some things about it, the romance didn't quite hit for me, but I enjoyed the kind of cozy mystery aspect of it. So I wanted to read a little more from this author, and since I got a gifted copy of this one and it fit the prompt, I went ahead and downloaded the audiobook. I read a little bit at work in between meetings, and I had it on for the audio in the car. I had a lot of traffic going, a lot of traffic coming home, and just before I got home this evening, I did finish this one up. This begins with a woman with amnesia. Suddenly this man comes to her, is calling her Alex, and telling her to run. She has no clue what's going on, but people keep trying to kill her. So she goes along with this guy who seems to be trying to save her life. Obviously, this is a romance. Romance ensues. But there's a lot of mystery here. It turns out this woman is not Alex. Alex is her twin sister, who is a spy. And this woman has no clue what's going on, but she's wanting to figure out what's going on. She has some sort of feeling of kinship for this twin sister she doesn't remember, and wanting to get them out of clearly a messy situation. There are twists and turns, but what really worked for me in here was the humor. Honestly, when I downloaded this, I thought it might be a quick DNF. It might just be a silly time, and it definitely was silly. It's over the top kind of humor and action. We've got constant people trying to kill them and chase them. They go by train and boat and jumping off of mountains and all sorts of crazy things. They are in Europe. We've got a main character who just randomly stumbles into abilities she didn't know she had. Lots of things that shouldn't have worked for me, but because I went into this just expecting a fun time, I rolled with it, and it had me chuckling. It had me engaged and not getting too bored by the fact that I was sitting in an hour of traffic driving home, and this was a lot of fun. I believe there's a sequel to this now, and I'll have to definitely check that out because this really was a good time and it kept me super hooked. I would compare this to like the Stephanie Plum books by Janet Ivanovich in terms of just going in and expecting silliness and lots of tropes. You've got only one bed and touch her and die and lots of things going on in here. But it was really fun, lots of good banter, and our main character is just silly. She's making up words left and right and very proud of her amateur spy games and everything else. So anyway, this was a lot of fun. I have no clue what I'm going to pick up next. You'll know when I know. I'll get you an update at some point. I did start a Ruth Ware book. I made it a whole 26 pages in, but I don't have the audiobook for that one, so I don't think that's going to be a quick finish. I have been continuing on in Arcana Academy, and this has been a lot of fun too. I've been picking it up on audio when I get a spare moment, but again, the audio app I use for this, since it is an ARC, I can only speed it up so much, so it does take a while when it's a 22-hour audiobook or 24 or something like that. So I'm a little bit amped up still. I need to put on my PJs and try to relax because tomorrow is Friday, which means I do have to be at work, unfortunately. So that's the plan. I need to probably pick a book to read physically a little bit, calm myself down a bit, get some sleep tonight, and then survive Friday and then launch into the weekend. That's the goal. So with that, I'll leave you here and check back in later. Happy Saturday. It is the final weekend of the Amazing Readathon. I mean, we have Monday, but it is the final weekend. So I am going to give you some updates because I have a few. And Kylie, of course, just picked up her Loud Squee Ball. So, or actually maybe she picked up one that, oh no, there it goes. It squeaks. So currently I'm participating in Becca from Becca in the Books 24-hour readathon for her Patreon. So that's going on. We're in the middle of a sprint and I did have a few updates for you. So yesterday I needed to pick up a couple things. I could audiobook and multitask to a little bit. It wasn't a great reading day. I had a lot of meetings for work that took longer than they should have, but I needed some like easy listening. So I picked up a couple of audiobooks that were YA. First off, I picked up The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the same author who wrote the Inherited series, which I really enjoyed. So this one is, think Criminal Minds, but YA. It's a group of teenagers who are recruited because they have natural abilities toward things. Our main character has the natural ability to kind of get in people's heads and profile them. And whether it's really natural, whether it's a little supernatural, they're very good at this, and they get put together as a team. They're investigating a series of murders, and our main character, her own mother was killed years back, and that winds up being a thread throughout the book as well. This was a lot of fun, a really easy read. Not the best thing I've ever read, but I definitely want to pick up the rest of the series. So it was a win. I gave it 4 stars. And this one had a cover change because they reissued them with new covers a while back. So I was able to get 300 points for my team for this one. And then I needed something I could just pick up without putting a lot of thought into it. So I wound up picking another book by Allie Carter, who I'd already determined had a pen name. And I picked up a YA book of hers, which is Not If I Save You First. And this one begins with our two main characters as kids. The male character, Logan, is the son of the president. Maddie is the daughter of the secret agent in charge of protecting the president. Something goes very wrong at the beginning of the book when they are kids, and then they are separated. Maddie and her father move to Alaska. Logan obviously remains with his father at the White House. So years have gone by, and she wrote him letters. They were absolutely best friends. I want to say they were maybe middle grade-ish at that point, because there was starting to be little signs of there being a crush between them in that kind of puppy love kid way. And she wrote him all these letters. He never wrote back. There's a lot of hurt feelings there. So when they wind up reunited, there's a lot of tension between them. And then things start going wrong. People are trying to kill them, and they are winding up needing to save each other through the Alaska wilderness, the snow, the animals, the people after them. There's a lot going on. This was a fun read. It didn't hit as well for me as The Blonde Identity did, but it was still a fun time. It still cements the fact that I can really enjoy her writing and her humor in places, and it was a good time, and I got it in just in time before the next leg drop, and this one earned another 500 points for my team. I did also last night, unfortunately, submit a DNF. I made it more than halfway into Jawbone by Monica Ueda, and I just was not vibing with this. There's a lot of sex, there's a lot of talk about sex, about just weird things, and that's not really what I want out of my horror. And I can see the weirdness in here working for some people and not working for others, and for me, it did not work for me. It felt like there was a lot that was there for shock value, and I wasn't really staying hooked to the storyline. So this did wind up getting me 400 points for being a one-word title. So I did get some extra points there for the team, because I did make it past the halfway point. But I just, for a while at the beginning, I was thinking it was going to be a quick DNF, and then I got a little more engaged, and then it started going back in some different weird directions. The timeline in here was fuzzy to me, but I think that was because I wasn't focusing well on it. My brain kept wanting to drift off to other things. So that was what it was. So we got our final leg drop today, and we are off to Wonderland. And the prompt for this one is to read a shorter book than your previous book that you submitted. And it can't be a book you've already finished, and it has to be the last book you submitted. You can't read something else and then find a shorter book. So all along, I've been planning to submit Arcana Academy for this one with the power-up card that you can submit whatever book you want and not worry about it, because I wanted to be able to read a longer book for this leg. Now, we got a little bit of a twist today, because the Gale Weavers actually won the last leg of the journey. And normally I wouldn't be spilling that in a vlog, but given that this vlog is coming out after the readathon ends, I don't think it matters. But the card we won for that was to double up on your pages, but you can't use two cards at the same time. And this book is definitely longer than my last book, because my last book was only 297 pages. So I've decided to ignore the double up card. I'm just going to keep going on in this and submit this for the leg. I only have like 100 pages left. I think this will be a very quick finish. I've been having a fantastic time with it. So now that I can dedicate my time to finishing this up, this one is 540 some pages. So it's definitely better to do this. Plus I get the bonus point for the trials and competitions in here. And that's going to be better than trying to find a different book that's less than 297 pages, but doubled to get more than this. So it's been a little extra confusion this morning with this final twist on this final leg. Brie loves to create chaos. So this is going to be my choice for the leg. And then we have the sightseeing, and the 200 point, but doubled to 400 point prompt for this final leg until the readathon ends is to pick a book with a spinner wheel. And I just kind of ignored all other prompts and said yes, because this is a pro spinner wheel type of channel. So let's go ahead and figure out what my first book is going to be using a spinner wheel, so I know what to get into once I finish Arcana Academy. Okay, so I've put a few different books, a few that are on my TBR, a couple that aren't, but I have holds that have come in from Libby, and I might add books or take books off as the weekend goes, depending on Libby availability and things like that, but we shall see. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel. Okay, I Who Have Never Known Men. This is not officially on my TBR, but it's a book I own and have been wanting to get to. It's short, so that'll help me out as well. So that'll be next up, and I'll tell you more about it when I get there. But I'm going to finish up Arcana Academy first, and we are going to finish this readathon strong. It's now Saturday afternoon, and I'm doing some reading sprints on my channel for the Amazing Readathon, so I've been getting some good reading in, and I do have a couple updates for you, and then we get to pick a new book, so that's exciting. I finished up Arcana Academy and submitted it for this leg of the journey. Since I was using the power-up card that lets me read anything, this wound up going in for 596 points for our team, so I'm excited about that. And then the rest of the month can just be sightseeing. I say that as if there's a lot of the month left. There's 2 days, 2.5 days, but that's okay because they will be sightseeing days. I really wound up loving this. I loved the magic system in here and the way the author set it up. I really was hooked on the ending of this, and it left on a twist that I should have seen coming, and there were times in the book where I questioned it, but absolutely didn't fully realize what was going on, and I love that about it. It absolutely has me wishing I had book 2 in my hands, even though this one's not even out yet. This one comes out July 22nd, so there's time yet to go. I'm very thankful to Del Rey for sending this to me. I flew through it. I mean, I know it's been a week since I started it, but since this wasn't ever a priority read, it's just what I kept wanting to get back to. That's pretty quick to get to it. So I'm glad to have been able to use it, get some good points for my team from it, and move on from here. I think the characters were good. I think the romance is good. I wouldn't say this is a super romance heavy book. There's not a ton of smut. There's some, but I think going in with those expectations that this felt a little more fantasy forward to me personally, I think will work quite well if that's what you're looking for. So this was an easy 5-star read. Excited to be ending the month strong for my final submission for a travel prompt for Amazing. And then for my first spinner wheel pick, I picked up I Who Have Never Known Men, and over the last couple of sprints, I have finished this one up as well. In this one, we are following an unnamed main character. She is known as the Child, basically. She has lived her entire life in a bunker. They don't really know why they're there. There's 40 women there, and they are in a cage. The only men around are the guards, who do not speak to them or interact with them aside from kind of whipping. They have a whip if they do something wrong, but she is learning from these women. These women around her remember their life before the bunker a little bit. They don't know how they got here or what's going on, where they are, and all of that, but she learns a little bit about the world through them. And then one day, by some strange twist of fate, she emerges out into the wider world. And I think going into this without knowing anything beyond that is the way to go. I can't even really put my finger on why this really had me hooked as well as it did, but I was absolutely hooked. I read this so quickly and kind of did a tandem read between the audio and this one, and absolutely loved it. I think the author did such a good job of kind of how this young girl, being raised in this way with this lack of knowledge, would kind of explore herself, the people around her, what relationships mean, what the world is all about, and I just really had a fantastic time with this. I don't know that it felt 100% 5-star for me, but it's, I think, sitting at a 4.5 right now in my head, but I have a feeling this is one I'm going to be thinking about for a long time and may wind up getting bumped back up. So this one has been submitted as a spinner wheel pick for 400 points, and then it's time now to spin again. All right, I replaced I Who Have Never Known Men with a different book, so we don't have to worry about landing on the same book twice. So let's go ahead and spin. Okay, The Woman in Suite 11. I've started this one in the sense that I'm 24 pages in currently, and this is an arc that I've received of the sequel to The Woman in Cabin 10, and I'm very intrigued to figure out what's going on in this one. We are following the same main character. It's been 10 years. Her life is in a different place. She's looking to get back into reporting, and she gets invited to go to this fancy, I think it's in Switzerland, resort, and that's all I know so far. Literally only 24 pages in. So I will go ahead and get reading on that and let you know how I find it. It's not too much later, and I am taking a break from sprints to heat up some dinner and realize I really need an audiobook to go to. So I've edited my spinner wheel to have just the books with available audios, and we will pick an audiobook. I'm still going to prioritize my Ruth Ware book because that came up first and it's an arc that I need to read and one that I'm enjoying at this stage in the game, but I wanted to go ahead and pick another one. So let's do the whole screen recording thing again, and ready, set, and spin. Alright, this is House of Secrets. This is by Darcy Coates. It's a sequel to one of her books that I didn't absolutely love, but I am eager to go ahead and finish it up, and I believe this continues the story. I don't really remember a whole ton, so hopefully the audiobook will refresh me while I'm eating some dinner. It is now Sunday morning. I've been up for a little while reading. I stayed up later last night than I probably should have, but I did about 7 hours of sprints last night on my channel and had a fantastic time reading, so I just wanted to keep going and then needed some downtime to just continue reading and wind down last night. So I'm just kind of getting up, getting moving this morning, and I have now finished The Woman in Suite 11. And first question I had going into this one is, do I feel like a sequel was needed after The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware? And my answer to that is no, it's not necessary. Second question is, do you need to have read the first book for this one to make sense? And there, I think the answer is probably yes. I do believe you could read this one and get enough context clues from the text in here as to what's going on that you wouldn't really be lost. But at the same time, there are a lot of characters in here that pull over from the first book. There are definitely plot lines that pull over from the first book. So I feel like you would be kind of feeling like you're entering mid-story if you jump to this one first. So I would recommend picking up Cabin 10 before Suite 11. Overall, I actually enjoyed this, probably even more than I expected coming into it, because it really held my attention. I mean, it's not a super teeny tiny book, and I read this pretty much physically over the space of less than 24 hours. I was 26 pages in when I started my sprints yesterday. So with that, I made it through this very quickly, which for a print-only book is a really good sign. So this was definitely a win. I think I'm giving it 4 stars. There were a few places where I felt like it was slow. There were a few places where I definitely got frustrated with our main character. There were twists that I saw coming that I felt like maybe she should have been questioning a few things a little bit better. And there were 1 or 2 things where I felt like maybe we could have used a little bit more tying up. But in the end, this was a fun time, and if you like a not super fast-paced but still gripping type of a thriller mystery, I think this one could definitely work for you. This one is out on July 8th. And with that, I also finished up House of Secrets by Darcy Coates. This one was a good time. It was an easy audiobook. I'm glad this one wound up getting the spinner wheel because it was kind of a perfect one to put on and be able to kind of listen and relax and get ready for bed last night, kind of start my day this morning, listening again. It's really short. I think it's a 6 or 7 hour audiobook, and it does definitely build on what happened in the first book, which I didn't remember really well, but it did a good job of kind of catching me up and reminding me of where we left off on things. There's a romance going on in here. It's historical, which maybe that's partially why I'm not connecting as well with this particular series compared to other Darcy Coates books, but overall, it was a good time. I just really like Darcy Coates' sense of atmosphere, and that definitely comes through in here. There's a few very creepy scenes that stand out to me in my mind, so this one I think is getting like a 3.5 for me. So with that, I do need to spin my wheel again. We've got basically a day and a half left in the month to finish things up because 9 o'clock my time tomorrow night is when the readathon ends, and I absolutely need an audiobook because I've got my commute tomorrow. I'm planning to go out and about today for a little bit, so ideally getting a book where I can either read physically or audio would be ideal, but if that doesn't work, I might spin twice if I wound up on a spot with only a physical book. We'll see what we get. So, okay. I didn't add anything else new to the wheel, but I did add back on 1 or 2 I'd taken off because they were physical only. So let's see what we get. Okay, Celestial Monsters. This is the sequel to the Sunbearer Trials, so it would finish up a duology and finish up a series that I started during this month, so that's fantastic. And I have it both on ebook and audiobook from the library, so that also is fantastic. So that's a good multitasking book, and I'm kind of thinking like I want to spin one more time just while I'm standing here, just in case I do get one of the physical only books while I'm home today more. I want to be able to knock that out today. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Okay, I should have done it before I stopped recording, but let's go ahead and record again. Okay, one more time. Okay, great. Root Rot is a short story collection I've been working on this month. It's not 100% hitting for me. I've had a few wins, a few more probably that just didn't quite speak to me. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a little bit more reading time today, and we'll see how that goes. So I will check back in when I have updates, probably tonight at some point or before work tomorrow, and I'll let you know how it's going. It is Monday morning and the readathon is over in 13 and a half hours if I'm doing my math right. So I figured I'd do a really quick check-in. I don't have that much to tell you at this point in time. Yesterday, I spent a good chunk of the day out of the house. I went to lunch with my best friend and then we did a bit of shoe shopping. We did a little bit of spending money. I bought a new purse. I bought some new sandals and I booked a trip to South Korea. So, you know, it was an expensive day, but not the best of reading days, although I was up early, so I did some reading in the morning. Anyway, I'm rambling. But I did want to let you know that I am going to be DNFing, or at least soft DNFing, Root Rot by Sarah Reed. These stories aren't gripping me enough to really binge and finish the entire collection before the end of the readathon. But I made it almost 2/3 of the way through, so it is still going to count for a submission for my team for 400 points. And then I did spend a good chunk of time reading Celestial Monsters. Since I have that on audio, I used that when I was driving around yesterday, and I'm having a good time with it. It took me a little bit to settle back in, remember exactly everything where we left off. I remembered the plot points, but where the relationship stood, things like that. We're getting a little bit of a jumble in this one. I'm not feeling quite as engaged in this one. We're bouncing around a little bit with figuring out powers and then suddenly shifting scenes as they're traveling between multiple places, but they're encountering some cool creatures. The relationships are developing. Overall, I'm having a good time with this one. So I do have 45% of this left. That's going to be my main priority today to finish up before the end of the readathon. We had a surprise detour from Bree yesterday where we had to start a new book, and that had me just dipping into one of my July books because I just don't think I have time to add one more book in unless for some reason a super short audiobook pops up today, because I do need to get some editing done and I need to get actual work done at work. I am down to only 7 working days left before my vacation, so things are getting extra chaotic. So that was me trying to give you a short update. Didn't entirely succeed on the short part, but I will check in with you tonight to let you know how everything wrapped up for the end of this readathon. It's officially nearly the end of the readathon. I have like 2.5 hours left, I believe, but apparently Kylie's being shy at the moment. But it's officially time to stop racing because I did finish my final book for sightseeing, Celestial Monsters, and I didn't love it quite as much as the first book. I think it just bounced around a little bit too much for me. I think I said that earlier. It went from having relationship moments to meeting new creatures to having danger and then back to something else. And I appreciated all the discussions about relationships. There were discussions about pronouns and about identity and all of that, which I did really still appreciate. It just, the story itself didn't hook me quite as much, but it was still a 3.5, rounding to a 4, and I'm glad that I finished off the duology this month. I started with book 1 as my first book of the month, and I finished off the month with book 2, so that was a nice way to kind of bookend the readathon. She was so excited when I got home, and now she just looks sleepy. You just look sleepy. Okay, I'm gonna put her down and I'll finish talking to you. This final week brought some really good reads and some digital reads and audiobooks on top of these, so I definitely had a fantastic reading month. I think for the month as a whole, I read over 60 books, which is definitely my best month of the year so far, and I don't necessarily see myself beating that. I think the way that Bree set up this particular version of the Amazing Readathon with knowing prompts ahead of time and allowing you to do some pre-planning, but also getting those sightseeing prompts each time with different point values really added a lot of motivation, and it worked really well to kind of find things on my shelves that would work for the different prompts. So with that, I am going to go ahead and wrap this up here so I can get my final clips edited and this vlog out. But thank you so much to Bree for being an absolutely fantastic host in the best chaotic way, and to Claire and Mel for being excellent team leads for the Gale Weavers. Let me know in the comments below, how did your month of reading go? What was your favorite book of the month? Or what are you looking forward to in July? And if you made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, leave me some sort of monster related emoji for Celestial Monsters by Aiden Thomas being my final book of the month. If you could hit that like button below, I would surely appreciate it, and subscribe if you're interested in more of my readathon reading, more of my book reviews, and more of my bookish content in general. But for now, I'll leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.